Mrs. Fletcher, and I know this much is true, with the great, and I really mean that, Catherine Hahn. Thank you so much
Hmm.
for joining Contenders today, Catherine.
Oh, it's so good to see you, Pete. Hi.
Let's first talk about Mrs. Fletcher, which I think a lot of people have seen at this point, certainly. And it started out, I believe, as a limited series, but I'm hoping, like a lot of people, there's going to be a season two because there's a lot more to say about these characters here, I think.
Oh,
Did you have fun doing Mrs. Fletcher?
yeah, it was tough. I mean, I love the book so much. It's based on the book by Tom Perrotta. He adapted it. Who is, like he wrote The Leftovers and Little Children and Election.
Yeah.
So his work really tends to be adaptable very easily for this medium. And this, we did not know if it was going to be a limited series or be open ended, but it seemed to actually work really well as a limited. And so I'm really satisfied. I would love to see more, but I am really satisfied in the dissatisfaction, as it were, of where it ended up with these characters. So
Yeah. Well,
I think this is ultimately where it's at, where it is.
wow. Okay.
Yeah, I
Well, it had
know.
a hell of an ending, but let's take a look. Let's tell them what I'm talking about here. We're going to take about a little look here, a little peek at Mrs. Fletcher.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Not really.
Yeah, me neither, but I thought I saw one today.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I hurt my foot. I thought I saw a friend of mine who had died. Tried to walk closer, and then I fell and I sprained my ankle. And when I got up, he was gone.
Wow. Were you scared?
No. It was just a lot.
I can imagine.
All right. Well, this series has so much stuff. Well, we talked about the ending. If I don't want to do a spoiler alert here, but wild. Uh, so it's based on the book. It deals with empty nester. Your son goes off to college, played by Jackson White. He's terrific in the show, as is the whole cast.
Yeah.
And and it also has all kinds of things to do with sexuality, mores of today, the different changing sexual climate, internet porn, which
Yes.
I never thought I'd live to see the day that that's a major plot point in a television series. But it is. Talk about first. Had you read the book before this came to you, or how did that all happen?
No, I didn't. I got a meeting with Tom, and then I read the book beforehand, and I was so just immediately curious about his curiosity about this woman, and why this man would be so curious about her journey, I think. And I was really taken with the kind of dual coming of age story. I think that that it was not just this woman's path, but it was her son's at the same time. That they kind of like, you meet them on the kind of cliff's edge of this like next leaping off point into this next chapter of their lives, and this mother and son who were never really quite close to begin with. And through the kind of Pandora's box, as it were, of internet porn, like that, you see that that's kind of like the jumping off point. It's not really about it, but it kind of is like this. It's kind of used in so obviously like different ways for both of them. Like through him, you get to see like his college experience through what he learned about intimacy and vulnerability and how to be a man and like all these things through internet porn. And for her, it becomes this like world that she never thought that she could ever have access to or explore. Like she had always been kind of trying to just color between the lines of being like defined by other people as like mother and wife, caretaker. Like she's still Mrs. Fletcher even though she had been divorced for 10 years. So there had been this allowance to just be reckless and a little bit dangerous and be not the good girl anymore, and just kind of throw away all these definitions. So I was really excited to explore and curious to explore these things Tom, and we put together like a gangbusters list of like incredible women directors and just a really fabulous writers room. And yeah, it was a thrill
It was
exploring
really
it.
important to you to have a female voice here. It's obviously a book and a show run by a man, a showrunner here, Tom Perrotta, but it's all women, starting with the great Nicole Holofcener, Carrie Brownstein. I know, me too. I
love her.
love her movies, and she brings, and they all bring a unique thing, but a unique female voice to it too. It was important to have all of these episodes directed by women, wasn't it?
It was very important to me, and also to Tom. And I think he knew too, going into it, that because we were going to be exploring, especially because so much of it was going to be exploring Eve Fletcher, who I played, her the inner life of her quiet sexuality, like this burgeoning new chapter in her sexuality, that it was kind of imperative that we kind of like created this like place where it was important that the gaze be very important that it be a female one, that it was just like we wanted to get inside of her experience of it, that it was that we were telling the story through her exploring it from the inside, that it didn't feel like it was like on the outside looking in. So yeah, it was important.
Or exploitative.
That's what I mean. Yeah. Right.
Which, it in the wrong hands, some of this would have been. And it wasn't,
No. It's really important that we got on the inside of her experience to see what it felt like, and that it didn't feel exploitive, and it felt like we were really trying to figure out woman's like desire and her want and her agency, and that she, it was interesting. This is a woman that was like, in her, like me, like in her mid 40s, like that she wasn't invisible after having a child go away to school, that she's in menopause, that she wasn't like that. It's not like her life just ended and she was put up on a shelf. Not that don't want to say it's totally rare, but it is pretty rare that we get to see that. And so it was pretty important that we had women voices all around it. And hats off to Tom for, having that be imperative to him as well.
In a plethora of riches, you get to do another show with HBO, limited series, based on a book as well. I know this much is true with Mark Ruffalo, and an incredible cast down the line. And this is a deeply emotional and rich kind of role you get to play here too. Dramatic. I mean, she's grieving. It's a different kind of role, I think, in a lot of ways.
Again, I had not read this book, the Wally Lamb book, and and this is a sizable book. I got the book and the scripts before meeting with Derek, and I just devoured them. And so I really did feel, before meeting with Derek, for the first time, really weirdly, Pete, like I felt when I was meeting Derek for this, I felt like I felt meeting him as Dessa. I know that sounds strange, but I really did feel like I had synthesized this material. I just felt so close to it. I just felt very, I just understood it. I just really, this material really, I just thought the adaptation was so gorgeous. And I immediately saw Mark in both of those roles. I just admired both of those gentlemen. I just think Mark is, of course, like You Can Count on Me was one of those films that I still, when I think about it, I just want to start crying. I just love that movie so much. It's the kind of work that I just aspire to, that kind of truth telling and that kind of like actor work, that kind of like trench digging work. I just admire. And the same with Derek, like that kind of
that's Derek Cianfrance, who's the director.
This director.
Great director, by the way.
Yes.
I mean, when you look at Blue Valentine and The Place Beyond the Pines and his movies here, it must be a treat to get to work with him and Mark. And
it was the dreamiest. I just knew, like same thing. I knew, just even reading as a fan a little bit about the process of Blue Valentine. I was like, oh, that I just remember thinking how dreamy that had sounded. And this just like, it just did not disappoint. I mean, I know you know, having seen a few of them now, like I mean, Mark is so gorgeous. And I knew that I would be like kind of dipping in and out, but they were so welcoming every time I dipped in. And the process they created for us to find that history in such a short amount of time was like actor's dream, actor's dream, actor's dream. Like it just, I mean, Pete, it was like I loved it. So I mean, it was just the dreamiest. Derek was so, he's just like, neither of them are like precious about it. Like you would think for such a heavy material, it would be like the heaviest set, but it just wasn't. But yet they took the work seriously, but it was, it just didn't feel heavy. Like it was the dreamiest. It was just the dreamiest.
It's an HBO viewer's dream too, you know, and this is going on there. Two great shows you have. Thank you so much for joining us today on Contenders.
My pleasure. You know, I always love seeing you, and I can't believe it has to be virtually, but this is what it is.
One day we will appear in person again.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
Really good to stay healthy and sane-ish.